Good morning, everyone. Today for my discussion, I want to talk about Abigail Adams in light of Laurel Thatcher Ulrich's article, How Betsy Ross Became Famous. So just briefly, I'll say that in that article, Ulrich explores the traditional story of Betsy Ross that we've all heard as children and really has been in the collective mind of the nation for centuries. The comparison of traditional and historical evidences for Betsy is somewhat unbelievable given the stories that were taught and the magnitude that were taught them, or the magnitude that they have. Her legend seems to be backed up by oral histories given by her family, and there isn't much in terms of tangible historical evidences. So for Betsy, it seems we have more circumstantial evidences, those oral histories, than any clear-cut and absolute fact. Abigail Adams, however, is different in this regard. Now, she's celebrated in the largest part for political insight and as advisor to her husband, John Adams, who spent time in the Continental Congress, also as vice president and president. For Abigail, though, her legacy can be shown through correspondence, and there's somewhere around the number of 200 letters that we have written back and forth between her and her husband. I'm not sure on the exact number, but it's somewhere around 200. Now, she wasn't known to be shy in her speech or her opinion. So, for example, in a letter that she wrote to her husband on March 31st, 1776, while he was in the Second Continental Congress, she makes this statement. By the way, in the new code of laws, which I suppose it'll be necessary for you to make, I desire you would remember the ladies and be more generous and favorable to them than your ancestors. Do not put such unlimited power into the hands of the husbands. Remember, all men would be tyrants if they could. If particular care and attention is not paid to the ladies, we are all determined to foment a rebellion and will not hold ourselves bound by any laws in which we have no voice or representation. So not only was she compelling her husband to make these changes, but because he was in a position to create and pass laws that would affect the colonies, but she even threatened rebellion and should her cause not be accommodated and women remain with no representation as to their rights. Now, her strong voice as a leader for women's rights is supported by more than a repeated tradition or oral history. The correspondence between her and her husband is numerous, and we can read by her own hand words that support the tradition of advocate and advisor. And while equitable treatment under the law did not ultimately ensue in this instance, certainly her stance and determination is undeniable. In the year prior to this letter, Abigail was appointed, along with Mercy Warren and Governor John Winthrop's wife, Hannah, to the Massachusetts Colony General Court, and this would later make Abigail Adams, when she became First Lady, the first to have been appointed to an official government position. Unlike Betsy Ross, who was a celebrated seamstress and a female heroine of the Revolution, Abigail Adams offers us definitive proof of her contribution to a free United States. Similar to Betsy Ross, however, Abigail was a woman in a man's world, who became a legend because of her deeds behind the scenes and outside of the spotlight. Thanks.